and contemporary social issues. I was born in Derby, though I try very hard not to think about that because it is not the world's most interesting city, I find. I hope nobody from Derby is offended by that. And I've been here longer than I choose to remember, very long time. I did Chinese studies, but it was a long time ago, and it was known in those days as Oriental Studies, brackets Chinese. I was in Durham, and it's quite a traditional institution, so they use those traditional expressions. And I chose it because I wanted to do something different. You know Ellen MacArthur, the round the world yachtswoman, she said that the reason why she sailed around the world was because she wanted to get as far away from Derbyshire as possible, and that tends to be why, so I did Chinese. Most memorable experience. I think probably two, one academic and one related to my year abroad. The academic one was reading a book. It was actually about the Jesuits arriving in China in the 16th, 17th century, possibly earlier, can't remember the date. And at a time when there was very little published on China that was heavily based on primary sources, it was really interesting to get a sense of the voices and the preoccupations and the concerns of the people you were working on. You could finally see specifically why individual Chinese were concerned about this new development, what they thought of these people who'd come from the other side of the world and landed in China on their doorstep. And the other one related to the year abroad, it's a kind of memory, but it's that feeling which I really associate with China that you get when you step off a train in a new city at 5 in the morning, everywhere is dark, and you have that sense of infinite possibility. You could go anywhere from here. And every time I hear a train whistle, I think of that. What I'm working on at the moment is a project which I'm describing as Who Owns History? And I'm looking at the ways in which personal histories of modern China are told, and the ways in which they sometimes support and sometimes challenge the official histories that people will have learned at school or seen in the newspapers. I think the Chinese government is still very keen on managing and educating people in orthodox versions and stories about history, but I think now people are much more willing to tell their own stories, and I think that's a fascinating process. Do it. I think East Asia is so important and so interesting that more people should be working on it. I think also it's important to remember that it's not just about the language. There is so much of East Asia that you can understand, that you can engage with, that isn't just about language learning. First of all, it's inherently interesting. It's a place that is, across the region, everything is changing so fast, and the relations between the different Asian societies and different Asian governments are complex, and they shape the world that we live in. It used to be that East Asia was somewhere outside over there, and when I started doing Chinese studies, people couldn't quite understand why you would want to learn Chinese, why you would want to go to China. I suppose in the week after Xi Jinping's state visit, we're at a point where we're looking very hard at our relations with China, but I think, however we see those relations working, whatever shape we think they should take, we can't just step back and say, that's a long way away, it doesn't matter to us, because it really does. Ooh, that's a difficult one. I think probably learn which advice to ignore. Because you get so much advice, it's all well-intentioned, but not all of it is going to work for you. So I think one of those things that you learn at university and that you learn as you go from being an 18-year-old leaving school to approaching your first job, whatever that is. I think one of the things that you learn is to find your own compass and decide what is important to you and how you're going to navigate that. Either avocados or mapo-tofu, Chinese spicy tofu. James Joyce Ulysses. I have read it. It's not as difficult as people say. That was a difficult one. I'm going to go classical and say Sibelius' Sixth Symphony, first of all because I love Sibelius, and secondly because of the story attached to it. I think it was the Sixth Symphony where he insisted on conducting but turned up extremely drunk and the premiere went very, very badly. Again, this is a difficult one. I suppose it's the Hollywood classics, maybe Casablanca or The Birds, because you know what to expect. And then the Chinese one, Yellow Earth by Chen Kai-ge, which came out in, I think, 1984, because that, after years of very heavily socialist cinema, that wrote a new cinematic language for China. That's the tricky one. Staring at the Sea is my all-purpose answer to those questions. Favourite place, either Beijing or the west coast of Scotland. Where do I still dream of going to? Iceland, Finland, Changsha, little boutique. You know I say the wrong words sometimes by accident. Little boutique hotel in Crete. Charitable donation, children, fast living.